Anyone who knows me knows that I really like the Mega Man X series of games. Mega Man X1 is one of my favorite games of all time. And a series that I also really enjoy is the Mega Man Zero series. So when I heard that the Switch was getting the Mega Man Zero Anniversary Collection all-in-one Mega Pack, I decided I needed to replay the originals and then compare them. I replayed Mega Man Zero 1 through 4 on the Game Boy Advance, Mega Man ZX and ZX Advent on the DS, and then I replayed through all 4 of the Zero games again on the DS. And then I played the Switch versions. And I just wanted to talk about the differences, the similarities, and what's improved, and which I think is the best version to play. I wanted to briefly just go over the plot of the Mega Man Zero games, not getting into too much spoilers if possible. Mega Man Zero takes place about 100 years after the end of Mega Man X6. Zero wakes up and X is nowhere to be found. There's new radical governments. There's a resistance fighting the human city of Neo Arcadia. And throughout the game, you find out what happened to X, what happened to Zero, and you meet the 4 guardians of Arcadia. It's a pretty good game, but it is very difficult. Then Mega Man Zero 2 comes out. It's been about a year since the first Mega Man Zero game. There's some changes to the way the Cyber Elves work and some of the gameplay elements, but overall the story is just a next continuation where the resistance has been built up and there's a new leader, and then he ultimately makes a grab for power. Mega Man Zero 3 feels like the real climax of the Zero series, where you find out about the Elf Wars and the Mother or Dark Elf who kind of started it all, and you in the end end up fighting Copy Zero, or find out you're Copy Zero, and you fight the true body of Zero, which is possessed by a being named Omega. Mega Man Zero 4 kind of feels like a little bit of a tacked on epilogue. It's very good, but it doesn't feel wholly like it concludes the story. It really just involves around the guy who helped kickstart the wars, kind of bringing him in and bringing him down, a guy named Dr. Wheel. The Mega Man ZX games, I don't know if they're in a actual future to the Mega Man Zero games or if they're like an alternate. Mega Man Zero 1, you play a carrier who is taking these things called biometals to a client, and then it turns out that these biometals, which you collect throughout the game, all transform you into the characters from the Mega Man Zero games, both the heroes and the villains. And Mega Man ZX Advent doesn't really even seem to be much of a sequel to me to ZX. It seems to be like, again, its own game, but it has the biometal system and the transforming the different heroes. And each Zero game and then ZX and ZX Advent, each game in the series fundamentally plays the same, but builds upon the previous. And I think each one is a little more fluid and plays a little bit better than the last. Mega Man Zero is the first game in the Zero series, Zero collection, and was obviously the first one I played. I really enjoy it. It's a really good game, although it is brutally difficult. Even on the box, it is advertised as the most difficult Mega Man game, and I would definitely say it is the most difficult Mega Man game if you just play it on the default difficulty. The later installments, the DS and the Switch version, have an easy mode, but if you're playing the Game Boy Advance version at its original intended difficulty, it is tough as nails. I like what it does as an evolution of the X series. I like the more fluid combat. I like that Zero can use the gun and the sword. I like the alternate weapons that he gets. I have never been a fan of the Cyber Elf system in any of them. They kind of act as your heal and your extras, and you have to dump money you collect into upgrading them, but it always felt unnecessary and tacked on, so I never cared for it. Mega Man Zero 2 ups the difficulty a bit, but it gives you a lot more tools, like a whip that you can swing from, and the Cyber Elf system is more overhauled and more user-friendly. There's also the different armors and upgrades you can get for Zero that, as you get through the game, make it a lot easier. Mega Man Zero 3 is probably my favorite of all 6 of these. I think the gameplay tweaks are the best. I like the recoil rod for bouncing. I think the level design is the strongest. The story is definitely the best. This is, like I said, where I feel like it all climaxes. The fight with X and then the final fight with Zero definitely are the highlights of the entire series. They're both in this game. I also like the changes to the armor and the elf system in this one. Mega Man 04 plays really smoothly. I really like the levels and I like the bosses. The story is okay. You have this power where you can grab enemies and steal their weapons. I barely used it. When I did, I found it gimmicky and not very useful. But it's still a really solid game. Definitely graphically, they all get better. Each one gets better than the last, and 04 is definitely the best looking. The first ZX game is really good. It feels almost like a Metroidvania because the world is really open and you take missions and then you bounce back and forth all over the map. The problem is the map designs are really convoluted and it's often hard to remember where something was because things don't feel like there's that thing that makes an entrance or a level or an area stick out to you to remember, go, oh, I need to go back to this area now. There just doesn't seem to be a lot of that. A lot of the gated progression is by like key cards and that feels really cheap. Also, the built-in map is awful at best, so using the map to remember where things are will not really ever help you. Overall, to be able to switch forms between different gameplay makes this one probably play the best of all of them so far. Graphically, it's gorgeous. It added these little kind of anime cutscenes, although they're not animated, they're just still frames, and some voices once in a while. It's pretty good though. Mega Man ZX Advent went whole hog on the presentation. It's a gorgeous game. It pushes the DS hardware to what seems like its limit. It has full animated cutscenes, Japanese and English voice acting. It's a really pretty game. It plays even better than the last 5. Overall, the powers are even more defined and there's more customization in this one. The map system's also a little bit better and the mission progression is a little better. It's also a little harder. I would say ZX Advent is just a straight improvement of ZX, although the story's a bit weaker. Comparing the different versions of the games, I really liked playing the Game Boy Advance ones, especially on original hardware. It felt very authentic and real. The upgrade to the DS for the 2DS ones was great. The first ZX game didn't really make much use of the bottom screen, but Advent absolutely did, and they definitely, all 6 games utilized the hardware they were on to the fullest. Replaying the 4-0 games on the DS adds an easy mode and some collectibles, as well as some mini games. I don't really think either version's really better or worse than the other. I guess the DS versions would technically be a little better than the original Game Boy Advance purely because there's more features. And then when you jump to the Switch versions, the presentation goes up. Obviously, they play in a higher resolution. There's different filters you can apply. There's different borders and aspect ratios. It's a really, really solid experience. They also have the easy modes retained, but what I really like about the Switch versions is they have a normal difficulty with checkpoints you can add, and I feel like that's a really good balance. Overall, I would say the original Game Boy Advance versions are really hard and not for everybody, and I almost really feel that they're too hard, but playing the DS or the Switch versions on easy is baby mode. They are way too easy. The best way to play these, I think, would be to just get the Switch collection, play them on the original difficulty, but add the checkpoint system. That's probably the best way to play, and the first couple ones are going to kick your butt, and they're going to be so difficult, and they're going to require a lot of practice. Probably not even practice, but the first one especially, you're going to be just restarting the game over because you'll probably do so poorly at first. You'll just get near the end of the game and have no power up. So you will probably have to replay these to get good of them, but I promise you, and I was reminded this as I replayed these, once you get into it and you get the fluidity and you figure out what the game wants of you, it feels really good. You're fast and you're quick and you're powerful. The biggest flaw objectively about these games is since they're all on such a small screen, including the Switch ones, your field of view is limited, and your biggest obstacle will be running into things that you can't see coming on screen because it's so small and it happens so fast, and the game pushes you to go fast. All the missions and levels are timed, and you get a rank based on your time, and your reward is based on your rank. So you got to go fast. And if you don't go fast, you don't get a good rank. But it's really hard to go fast unless you kind of have the levels memorized because it's sometimes almost impossible to react. That would be the only major flaw of the game subjectively. So my take is, yeah, get the Switch versions. If you're a big Game Boy Advance diehard fan like I am, or a big fan of the DS like it's one of your favorite systems, collect the originals. You'll appreciate them. But for anyone else, yeah, get the Switch versions. It's the best version. I think the game's like $40. It's absolutely worth it for 6 of the best games in the Mega Man series.